I want us to think about this critically to start from the bottom. Let's assume we've dropped our brain, treating this as day 0. And so beginning with day 0, this is you and you have big aspirations. I want to make a startup. Not only that, I want to be a billionaire. Big aspirations you have here. And so how do we begin? Well, day 0, we start with requirements gathering. What are we going to build? Let's say you're a plumber and all you want to do is make plumber software. Or perhaps you're a gamer and you want to make a video game. At the end of the day, the requirements gathering must happen. So you spend a few days on this, hopefully more than that. By day 3, you have yourself a set of requirements. Okay, and so as we said, right, we dropped our brain and we thought about it at day 0 of AI's impact. How can AI impact this part? Well, AI cannot tell you to make a startup. It might be able to help here, right? Requirements gathering. Certainly, I could feed, hey, what's the market like? Depending on what you're working on, maybe we can get this down to 2. Right, this will depends on the customer that you're working with, but in some cases it will not help at all. And so I think we can deem AI's impact at this stage low. We have our requirements. We've surveyed, we've done some looking around, taken a lay of the land. How's the market? Now it's time to begin day 4. Let's assume you took a bit of a vacation here. That was very sweaty, that gathering stage. This begins the next stage, planning. What is our tech stack? Do we need an API? If so, what endpoints? What configs? Right, is this an OS specific thing? Windows, Mac OS, all of them? Is this a mobile platform? Before we tape this thing out, we need to establish what it needs to look like at the end of the day. I think we can evaluate from our day 0 brain what AI's impact would be here. Tech stack, I really do believe AI has a massive help on. And in fact, I would go as far as to say, you're typically better off using a tech stack that the AI is well familiar with. Do we need APIs? What configs and devices must we support? This part right here, unfortunately, or fortunately, is also very low impact, believe it or not. Because the reality is, right, AI cannot know what you don't tell it. Really, the one area here that AI can help on is this part, but these two do need you to put some work in. The AI is not going to know what your plan is as far as device support. What if you're making a social media for Xbox, right? Some weird out of the box thing. This is something the human has to generate. But I would say one day is pretty fair. So let's assume you went through planning. Again, dropped our brain. What is the impact here? I would say AI's impact at this stage is still low. The reason I say this, deciding your tech stack, this was really a few Google searches away. Do we need an API? This is something you probably already knew from the get-go. And so now we're at day 5, right? We have the planning done. What's our next step? Well, actually, if we're following the software development lifecycle to a T, which is kind of where we're trending here, the next step would in fact be design. A lot of this is blended together, especially with AI. AI can do this design part very well if it has a good plan. And so actually, I would say it benefits us to consider these as one. But because I want to stick to the trend of the software development lifecycle, right, we're going through each of these stages here. We're going to keep this separate. This will be the first day where, now hear me out, AI's impact high. This part right here, also with one of the parts we'll mention a bit later, a few of the parts really, is where AI really helps us, right? This is a massive, massive help. No one can deny the amount of help that AI has on the design stage. But this assumes you put a lot of effort here, because in order for this to work in an effective way, you needed to spend a lot of time here. So really, I said day 4 to day 5. The reason I say that is because I'm assuming you're a cracked solo dev. But really, you probably should spend more time. Like I would say, realistically, ideally, you're spending many, many days on this. Say this design portion is such a high impact that you almost don't even consider it in the SDLC. The AI can take your plan and decide all of this right then and there. You absolutely need somebody to evaluate this stage. I think it can whip this up for you in a few hours, but the amount of time that you spend actually reviewing it and evaluating it, that should add some time too. All right. And so now at this point, we are ready to begin coding. But unfortunately, AI has completely robbed us of our need to do so. And so now we just go on to the next stage, which is implementation. Just like before, I think this really is high impact from AI's perspective. This is actually a stage where I really believe humans can evaluate, but I would not put it as strongly as the design stage. This part technically is very quick, but there is an impact to the next stage that I want to bring up. But first, let's draw it out. So just so we're clear, right? Day 0, we determined, hey, AI's impact on requirements gathering, really really not helpful. We still need to spend a lot of time here. AI's impact on planning, also low. Maybe you can feed your plan into the AI and have it help you out, but at the end of the day, human has to do a lot of work here. Design. If you did a good job here, this is very easy. I put 1 day, but again, this probably should be more than 1 day. And so now we've implemented, right? At this point, we have a product. And so we can shift this diagram over to here. We have our product. Now, obviously, there's a lot to the SDLC that I didn't call out here, right? You still need to test. You still need to deploy. There's the aspect of maintenance, right? These are still important. Testing, I would say AI's impact here is medium. Things that come with testing that are really only experienced by end-to-end testing with a human being. And then there's also some long-term things that you just can't pick up right away with AI. It takes time. Deploying AI's impact here is kind of I wouldn't say this changed too much. Maintenance is also, oddly enough, low. So there's certain aspects of maintenance that AI cannot really help you on. Managing bugs, customer relations, all this stuff. Because this really is part of maintenance, right? Yeah, you could set up an automated system that does this stuff for you, but you'd still have to put some effort in deciding what goes in. And so to me, the impact here is still quite low. But anyway, now we have the product. It's out. It's ready for customers to try and use. Here it is. We have it. Now, again, we're asking ourselves, is AI really replacing us? I believe there's some nuance to this that I really want to talk about. But before we do that, I think it's important we get a lay of the land. There's this paper here from Stanford. It's very new. And it discusses what is really happening to jobs, separating the AI hype from the reality. We see these articles all the time talking about AI jobs. Either you're on the side of it's replacing all of us or you're on the side of it's doing nothing at all. I'm somewhere in between, and I will get to my point after. And so the key takeaways of this article: AI's effects on overall employment is likely small, though a tough job market for new graduates may be partly due to AI. I think a lot of the layoffs that we're seeing are for other reasons. In some cases, the businesses just made bad choices, and so hiring is impacted by that. In some cases, they're just shifting their priorities. AI's impact on worker productivity is mixed, but generally positive. I agree with this. As we discussed, in some cases it has a very low impact, and at the end of the day, no matter how good AI gets, there's going to be parts of it that's like, hey dude, you need to be able to communicate your brain into the system. Firm adoption has accelerated unevenly across the economy, right? This is a pretty well-known thing. Certain markets are adopting AI aggressively, almost too aggressive, and then some are really lagging behind. Early evidence is hardly the last word on the future of work in an AI world, right? And this is the part I really want to harp on today, because I often see people assuming that AI is just replacing all of our jobs. But first, let's go down into the details. There's evidence here that AI has little significant job loss impact right now. Right? It mentions unemployment among workers in occupations most exposed to AI-driven disruption is rising, but not faster than among those least exposed. So it's still going up, maybe not as much as the non-AI impacted areas, but it's still going up. And a key point here, the unemployment rate for the top quintile of AI-exposed workers has risen by 0.77 percentage points since 2022, while the unemployment rate for the least exposed workers rose slightly more by 0.85 percentage points over the same period. So when we say AI is impacting our jobs, but we look at data like this that says, hey, really the most impacted areas haven't gone any worse than the non-impacted areas. That should tell you there's more to the story here. It also mentions there's little evidence of AI depressing employment or job postings in the most highly exposed occupations. I can tell you from experience, I still see a ton of job postings on LinkedIn. Obviously the competition is insane, right? With every job, there's like 2,000 applicants. And realistically, a resume reviewer is only going to get through maybe 10% of these tops. And so there's still a competition there, but I see new jobs posted all the time. And just from my experience, I see a lot of job hopping. At the company I work at, I would say in the last year, 4 or 5 people that I work closely with have went to a different company. Whereas the year prior, it was half that, if not less, right? There was a period of time a couple of years ago where nobody was hopping because they were scared. But over the last year or so, I've noticed a lot of job hopping. And it does harp a bit more on the tough labor market for the young workers. Now, this is an area that I can't personally comment on because I graduated in 2022. But I can tell you there are roles that were grunt work. Every company had these grunt work positions, and oftentimes these were given to the junior dev, right? Boilerplate code and just general stuff. No critical work was given, right? Those jobs pretty much wiped out. However, and I'm going to get to this, right? My point of what I believe this market is going to look like and is looking like, slowly but surely, I'll get into. But just keep that in mind, right? We're kind of planting seeds in our brain for how the market is. And so it mentions, since ChatGPT's launch in 2022, employment among early career workers in AI-exposed occupations, notably software developers and customer service reps, has seen a notable decline. Right? We can see here that the early career employment rate, especially in particular for customer service reps, has gone down quite a bit. For developers, this is pretty much also true. But I also want to make sure we're clear, it's not just AI, right? There's a lot that goes into these metrics. If we go back 20 years ago, you're going to see something similar. There's these trends that occur for a lot of reasons. There's a lot of things that go into this, and so it's not a guarantee that this is directly related to the AI, which I'm sure the article is going to allude to. Yep, here we go. Right, so the timing of this impact is somewhat surprising. AI model capabilities were very limited in 2022. So when we look at this graph, it really does seem to indicate, hey, as soon as AI started getting good, the job market just started plummeting. However, as this article mentions, 2 new papers find that hiring in AI-exposed occupations began to decline after the Fed's monetary policy shift, but before ChatGPT's debut. So this decline started before AI really started to matter. And also, let's make sure we're clear here. AI sucked until really 2025. Like, let's be honest. I feel like until 2025, early 2025 era, AI was not good enough. And that might explain this dip here, maybe. But really, this is when it started getting good enough to where you could use it every day on your job. It mentions here the rapid shift to remote work during the pandemic, which can slow on the job learning, erodes the value of hiring young workers. New evidence suggests hiring in remote-friendly occupations began to skew toward more experienced workers after the pandemic. And so this was a trend post-pandemic as well. Right? We have this awkward stage where, we had the pandemic clearing up at the same time when AI started to advance. And so there's a lot of that in this number here, in these numbers, right? And so that is worth noting. It's really like a needle in the haystack where you envision the hay as being the factors. This one thing that is being impacted has so many variables that are surrounding it. And it just so happened to seem to perfectly align with AI. And so we'll finish this article off before I get into my points. It really mentions that our current evidence does not point to AI being a direct factor. You'll see a lot of companies say that it is, but in reality, the data shows otherwise. And maybe that'll change, right? We can't just assume that it'll never be that way. But as of now, a lot of evidence says that that is not the case. And some are in the boat that, hey, AI actually increases jobs. And this is where I want to get into my point of view. So we discussed this SDLC, or effectively, starting from day 0 up to day 9, we released a product. Worth noting that these are just example values, but we have our product. Now here is where I want to highlight why I believe AI is not replacing us, it's moving us. When we were discussing this SDLC here, we identified, hey, AI's impact on things like planning, not too high, but its impact on the grunt code work, very high, right? This is where a lot of it goes into. But let's say you have your product out. Let's say it's released. It's on the App Store, Steam, whatever, right? It's on a platform where people can download it. And so let's consider this day, what day was that? Day 10. Day 10, you released your product. Well, guess what? Reviews came in and they're pretty good, right? You did a good job. This is version 1.0 and it's going well. People are downloading it. People are paying for it, whatever the case may be. Things are going well, right? We got people cheering. But notice it is an 8 out of 10, not a 10 out of 10. Why? Bugs, missing features, slow growth, okay? So guess what? The users that used it, they found some bugs. They did. They found some features that they liked about other products that are not being used in your product. And not to mention, the growth slowed. First released on the App Store, all these other things. We had a nice boom, but now we're back to slow growth. And so let's, again, drop our brain. Okay, so let's start. Bugs. This is actually, what do you got to do? Prompt the AI. Hey, here's this bug report, right? You send this bug report to the AI. It'll fix it for you. Great. Wonderful. And so all you had to do was send this prompt. Great. Awesome. Well, guess what? There was another bug. And so you repeat the process. You send another prompt. And guess what? There was another bug. Okay? You get the idea. This is going to go on. You're going to be doing this. Next thing you know, 6 hours have passed, right? Let's assume, Mr. You here, let's assume you have a life bar of 8 hours, right? This is fair. Obviously, solo founders, you probably work more than that, but let's assume it's 8 hours. And so at this point, fixing these bugs, you've filled your life up to this point. And so that gives you a little bit more time, right? We fixed our bug log. Now we can move on. Missing features. Oh God. Oh no. We're still going to prompt, but guess what? We do need to go back to one of the early stages. We need to go back to the planning stage, possibly even the requirements gathering stage, which has a low AI impact. And so this prompt has a bit more weight to it. We also need to have a plan And you know what sucks? AI's impact is low here, so that just ate up the rest of your day. 2 hours gone, and that's not even done yet. You probably still have to code this thing. And guess what? Now you're down to 0 hours left. You've completely filled your life bar. But guess what? We have slow growth. We have slow growth and we have no time to address it. So we now need to go to sleep and wake up the next day. So that was day 10. We're on to day 11. Guess what? Not much has changed. The reviews are still 8 out of 10 because you've still got more to do. You've got a new backlog of bugs that you got to fix. Luckily, let's say we were able to implement this feature, and so that cuts out some time. And now we're back to needing slow growth, right? What do we do here? Well, as we stated before, AI's impact here, low, right? This customer relations, the marketing aspects. Prompting ain't going to get you this part. You don't even get to send a prompt. You got to put some legwork into this. You better spend at least 2 hours on this part, let me tell you. And let's say, hey, maybe you lucked out. Maybe there's only 4 hours. All right, so we just achieved our day's work in 6 hours. Great work. We have some life left. We still have 2 hours left. At this point, you get some contemplation time. You got 2 hours left. You get to use this thinking. Finally, you get this time. And you start to think about the future. You start to think about, hey, if I relive this day every day, and we're only at maybe 10 users right now, and I had to spend 6 hours that day fixing these bugs and 2 hours adding this feature, probably more than that. How's it going to look like when we're at 100 users? How's it going to look like when we're at 1,000 users? So you go down this thinking process, you allocate some time to do this, and you realize that, oh shit, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to need more people. And so what do? You go out and you hire somebody. And so now we've got 2 people. Great. Now day 12 begins. Guess what? That slow growth thing that you worked on before, it worked out. Now you got more users. Reviews are up because you added the feature and you had a bug fix. But then later in the day, they discovered a big bug with the feature you just added. Now it's back to 7. Why 7? Because it has more impact now. Before it was 10 users. Now you're at 20 users. And they're going to be a lot more vocal. Anyway, you get where I'm going here. You still need somebody to send these damn prompts. You still need somebody to handle the parts that AI can't handle. I do believe we needed less people to do this than we did before, right? This day here, day 11, I don't think this would have been achievable by one. Right, this would have had to take at least 3 or 4 days. It was just one person pre-AI. Now it's one person and it only takes a day. Right now it seems like everyone under the assumption that we're going from here to here. Let's say this is 1,000 jobs, this is 100 jobs, 10x, right? Here's what I believe. I believe it's gonna look like this. It's called horizontal. Now, I'm not gonna draw this out all the way, but basically we just went from 1,000 jobs here to divvying it up between a bunch of horizontal slices. Instead of having 1,000 people on one job, we now have 100 people on many jobs. If you evaluate a company after AI, once all this dust settles, you're gonna realize they have an opportunity here to do a lot more than they did before, right? If you're at a store, and this is the GIF I picked, you've got all these options available to you right at your fingertips. Why only sell water when we can also sell Gatorade and soda and all these other things? This is how it's gonna be in software. We're not gonna need to allocate everyone on one thing. We can spend more people on R&D. We can spend more people on other products. Maybe we even go as far as having internal tools, right? There's so many different areas that we can allocate these people to that'll directly benefit our golden product. Every company has a golden product. Like, let's assume this is your golden product. This is what makes you most of your money. This is your payment processor of your PayPal. This is the main coup de grace of your app. But then you have a bunch of other ones that you are also able to now develop. If you're a payment processor, maybe you also have a silver feature that's a way to earn. Maybe you go as far as having credit, right? This could go deep, deep, deep. Point is, you now have this power available to you to have new features. And so while on the surface, it seems like, hey, we could just cut 1,000 people and move on with our lives. This is not how it's going to be. You're going to see these people just getting divvied up into different buckets, right? We don't need 1,000 people to run our payment processor anymore. We can get away with just 100 and then spend the rest on other tasks, on other features. Because at the end of the day, like I said, humans are needed here, right? We still need to send these damn prompts. We need to worry about planning. This is part that AI is still and probably will never be capable of, because there's a certain element of human brain translation, right? You need to translate your ideas at the end of the day to get an output. And so this is still necessary. And then as far as marketing and customer relations go, this has a human requirement as well. No matter what you do, you're going to need people. The question is how are these people going to be divvied up? I believe we are in a state where we do not need as many people per team. We can divvy it up much more. We can have more features on our product. We can have more R&D, right? As we were discussing before, you know, you're an engineer, you have a limited amount of time in your day. You might allocate this differently each day. That now is more of a product level where it's like, hey, we do not need to allocate everyone on this one thing anymore. you got to realize if you don't do this, you're going to be left behind. Imagine a PayPal that didn't have all these other things. Right now, it seems like, oh, well, I would still use PayPal. But if somebody comes up that has all these features in one go, you're now at a disadvantage. They're going to have that advantage over you. So it benefits you as a company to make sure you're on top of this and have as many of what people want as possible. Obviously, there's a lot of nuances to this, depending on the product you're working on, yada, yada. This is just an example. But I think it's reasonable to believe that companies are not going to go from here to here and just end it. They're actually going to divvy it up amongst a lot of different parts. And we still need humans for all this other stuff. And so that is why I believe, ultimately, AI is not going to replace us. It's just going to move us, right? You're still going to be sending prompts to the AI. You might end up in a loop engineering case someday. There might be some more involved there. But at the end of the day, you're still going through a standard SDLC. The end to end is still very much the same. Really, it's just an abstraction, right? We've abstracted our jobs to the point where now we do not need 1,000 people to work on one thing. But at the end of the day, we still need people for this. And so if you're in college, finish your degree. If you're working, keep working. And if you don't have a job, just wait it out. Actually, don't wait it out, keep applying, but you get what I'm saying, right? You do not need to deem the world is over. You've got a chance.